Louisiana. I'm Chef John Folse, welcoming you to this great state of ours. These beautiful plantation homes reflect the fascinating history of our culture and cuisine, and I'd like to share this story with you. Why not join me and some of my friends as we visit the plantation homes of our state and cook up another great Taste of Louisiana.
Funding for this program was provided in part by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of Louisiana Gold and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products. Additional funding is provided by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. Gumbo, etouffee, jambalaya, beignet. Come pass a good time in Louisiana and say things you've never seen before.
Did you ever wonder where the famous homes of America get their names? In Washington, the White House is named after its color. In Memphis, Elvis named Graceland for his mother. And way out on the West Coast on Catalina Island, the Wrigley Mansion is named for both the family and the chewing gum. Well, here in North Louisiana, I've discovered a wonderful little cottage named after the beautiful woods that surround it. I'm Chef John Folse. Welcome to Boscobel Plantation on the banks of the Ouachita River. It only seems appropriate that a house named for the beautiful woods that surround it would also be home for the Louisiana champion pecan tree. It got that title because it measured higher and measured wider than any other pecan tree in Louisiana. Imagine putting your table or gazebo under that tree. It was in 1820 that Judge Henry Bree built this little cottage as his residence while he was building his main plantation home next door. It was just a couple of years ago that that main plantation home burned down, and it was Kay and Cliff LaFrance who came in and bought the cottage and converted it into a bed and breakfast. Look at this beautiful patio with that old well. There's a lot of open acreage around the cottage, so it's great to stroll around in the morning. And this is one of those outbuildings. I actually slept in this little chapel. It wasn't originally a chapel. It was a pump house, but today it houses one of the bed and breakfasts. Look how beautiful all of these designs are. It's great to get up and walk around these beautiful patios with a cup of coffee in the morning. I had an opportunity to do that and look at all these beautiful windows and appointments around the house. Kay and Cliff did a magnificent job in restoring the cottage and making sure that it was perfect to welcome visitors to a Louisiana landscape. One of the interesting things about the dining room is this little door that dates back to the early 1800s with that ram's horn design hinge. It seems that an owner in the very early 1800s kept a record of the height of his children by cutting notches on the inside of the door, and they're still there today. And on the top, his wife kept a record of all of her beets and squash and everything that she had canned for that season. It's great to open that door and see these little notes from the early 1800s. In the living room right next door, it kind of resembles an English library. It seems that during restoration, the painters found that the wood beneath the paint was actually Louisiana sassafras. They decided that that was such a precious wood, because very few walls have that sassafras on it, that they would preserve it with the faux bois design, and that's exactly what they did. Look how gorgeous this sassafras is. You have to come and visit gorgeous little Boscobel Cottage. Boscobel Cottage truly is one of the rare finds in Louisiana, and you have to come and visit it. And you know, I think it was Kay and Cliff who single-handedly dispelled the rumor that in business, it's location, location, location. Because their little cottage is about 15 miles south of Monroe, and it's really rural in that area, but what a great feeling to wake up and stroll around those gardens in the morning. You have to come and visit them. Well, one of the great things that I discovered while visiting Boscobel was not only the location, but some of the great foods that were created right there in that little bitty cottage 100 or so years ago. And you know, all of my life I hated turnips, and I know a lot of you did too. And it seems that in a survey that was taken back in the early 70s, school children in America named 3 of their most hated vegetables, and guess what was number 1? Yep, you're right, turnips. But we found some great recipes for turnips, and I'm going to tell you, if you try it, I think you'll find that you may have somewhere down inside rekindle a love for that vegetable. It was also called the poor man's crop, and many people referred to poor people as turnip eaters back then. What a crazy thing, but it's a great, great dish. And one of the things that I'm going to do for you today is a turnip, potato, and andouille soup. And please try this. It's going to be a wonderful flavor. What I'm going to do in my little black iron pot here, I'm going to fire it up, and I'm going to put a little buttery flavored oil into the pot, and that's going to start to heat up quickly. This is, again, is that low cholesterol butter flavored oil. You can get it in the store anywhere, and once the pot heats up, it'll melt, and I'm going to saute a lot of nice vegetables in here. But take a look at these turnips. What I've done, I've diced the turnips into about little half-inch cubes, and the potatoes the same. I've diced them and I've poached them off in a nice stock, and I'm going to season the soup with andouille sausage. Now, Louisiana andouille is that cubed pork that is put into the casing, seasoned with a little salt and pepper, and then smoked over pecan wood for a couple of hours. So it's going to give 2 normally bland vegetables a really great flavor. Into this butter, now that it's heating up, buttery flavored oil, I'm going to put the typical vegetables of Louisiana. You know what those are. I cook with them all the time. The Trinity, onions, celery, and bell pepper. But since the soup is going to be basically a cream soup with white vegetables, naturally we have to put that color in here, right? We're going to put a little red, golden, and I'm going to even put some of these beautiful bright orange. Look how gorgeous these are, bell peppers. I'm going to saute all of that around for just a second. I want to wilt them. That's all I want to do. Just wilt the vegetables, because this is going to have to cook for a half hour or so, and we don't want to overcook them. We want to keep that crunchy texture. Into that, I'm going to add a little garlic, because again, hey, we have to put that nice garlic flavor down into the pot. Saute this around. And what I did a little earlier today, as I say, is I poached the vegetables, and in the pot right next to these sauteing vegetables, I have a nice turnip stock. And what I did, once the potatoes and turnips were cubed, I put them into this pot with a couple cubes of chicken bouillon. And I brought this to a boil for about 20 minutes because I didn't want the vegetables to overcook. I just want to get them al dente so that they're a little crunchy, because they're still going to cook in the soup pot, but I saved that stock because that's where all that great flavor comes from. Sometimes I'll put the link of andouille in here and get some of that smoked flavor in the stock as well. Now that this is done, I'm going to put about half of my turnips, because I don't want the turnips to overcook totally. I'm going to sacrifice these turnips and potatoes, just about half of them, into the soup and let this cook away. I'll stir that around, and I'll let these cook into the bottom of the pot to create the great flavor into the sauteing vegetables. To hold it all together, I need a little blonde roux or a little white roux. So I have the oil in the pot. Now I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit flour, just like that. That's going to pick up all of that oil that's down in here. And again, I'll stir this around. Look how the roux is being created right around the vegetables. You see this? Now I can just pick that up like that and show you how that roux coats all of the vegetables. Now I'll add my andouille. I'll sprinkle in my diced andouille. I took the smoked meats and chopped them up just a little bit there. And that's going to create that smoked flavor into the pot. Now I can add the stock. The stock is hot, so it won't reduce the cooking temperature at all of my soup. I'll just pour a few ladles, and you might want to remember the formula. 1 cup of roux, 1 cup of flour and oil will thicken about 3 quarts of this stock to a perfect soup consistency. Just perfect consistency. So ladle it in and just kind of stir it around a little bit. You'll see how quickly this soup just comes together. Look how nice this is. This is called a velouté at this point. This is velvety in French. A velouté is any stock that is thickened with a blonde roux, and that's basically what I did here. I would allow this to cook for about 30 minutes, as I say. Then I would add the rest of my vegetables into it, but let's assume that it's cooked for that long already. I'm going to finish it with a little bit chopped green onions. You can see how pretty that's going to look. Some nice chopped parsley into the pot. I'll put the rest of my turnips. I'll put the rest of my potatoes. And once that's in, let me get this little thing out of here. Once that's in, then I can season the soup. Remember that the pepper from the andouille is already in there, so I'm going to just put a touch of salt. I can put a little shot of the cracked black pepper, stirring that around really nicely, and then I can finish it with a touch of heavy whipping cream. I'm going to just put a little bit of the cream in there and allow all of this to come to a nice boil, and once it does, this soup will cook for just a couple minutes longer. I'll adjust the seasonings, and that'll be it. This can also be put into a food processor and blended around, and the flour can be kept out because the potatoes and the turnips will thicken the soup just really nice. It's good hot or cold, and you can also freeze this soup. Great turnip, potato, and andouille soup from Boscobel Cottage, a really nice touch, and you ought to try that on your next dinner party. It's going to be really a nice flavor. I'm going to reduce that temperature and just let it cook here because we're going to eat that a little bit later. Okay, the next dish that I want to do for you is another real find that I picked up at Boscobel, and you know what this is. This is sweet potatoes. You can see the sweet potato has been baked, and it's really nice and soft. And what I'm going to do is a pecan ball. Now, I can make it with sweet potatoes. I can make it with acorn, squash, pumpkin, any of those great, great flavors that are grown all year long, those good vegetables that's grown around Louisiana or found in any stores. And once the potatoes are baked, as I've done here, you can see, look at this. I want to show you how nice and tender and juicy. Look at the sugars in those potatoes. Once that's done, I can mash the potatoes down into the bowl like this and kind of get them all worked into that juice down there because there's a lot of sugar in this bowl. Notice this bowl too. See all the balls? I use this bowl because there's little pecan balls already all over the outside of it. Now to flavor this, I would put, again, any of the traditional flavors of not only Louisiana, but of any other part of the country where there's any of these sweet pumpkin or sweet potato recipes. I would put into it, obviously, some brown sugar, about a quarter cup or so, because you want to sweeten that up real nice and get that going. Then I would add a little cinnamon and a little nutmeg, just a touch of each, just a little shot in there. Of course, vanilla. You always want to put a little shot of vanilla, a touch of butter, because this will keep it nice and juicy during cooking, an egg. In fact, I'm going to put 2 egg yolks in here because this will hold it together. This will make it all cooking whole in those nice balls while they're cooking, and then a touch of flour. I'm going to sprinkle some flour down in it, and again, this will help hold the dish together. So stir it all up, and once it's done, once it's all flavored nicely like this, and you can see how sticky it's going to be. This is kind of a sticky dish. So what you want to do is to put it into the pecans. To roll it in the pecans, you have to use 2 little spoons because this is kind of like making a quenelle or a little chicken ball out of chicken meat. You want to just kind of put it into the pecans like this and stir it around. You can use your hands. I'm going to make 2 of them because I think you get the idea there. And I'll go ahead and move these around with my hand just to create the ball like that. And once they're created into the little ball, I have about 4 or 5 of them done, I would put them right in here like this. And I have to put a filling in it. Now, this is the secret here that makes these so wonderful. I have a little Mayhar jelly. Of course, you can use any jelly in the world, but this is Mayhar jelly. This is from the Mayhar berry of Louisiana. And I put a little dimple in the pecan ball, put the Mayhar jelly in it like that, 1 in each one. I've already done the others here, and then I'll cover it up. And this is going to go into about a 300-degree oven, and I can put a little cane syrup. I love that Louisiana sugar cane syrup. I'm going to put a little bit to keep them nice and sweet. And this is going to go into about a 350-degree oven for a couple of minutes, and I have some already done in the oven, so let me get them out of there for you so you can see what they look like. Oh, boy, these are really nice. And you don't have to cook these too long either because obviously these are already cooked. The pecans are already cooked. The yams are already cooked. Look how nice this is. And I can garnish them with a little mint. I'm going to put a little touch of mint on top of it and some julienne sweet potatoes. Look how pretty that is. Isn't that a nice little accompanying dish? And feel free to experiment. Do anything you want with that dish. Put any kind of flavors in it. Close my oven door here. Okay, what is the accompanying dish for this? Well, I'm going to tell you, when I was at Boscobel, not only did I find these two great dishes, but I found another one. In England, they call it wheat. In Scotland, they call it oats. Germany, they call it rye. In America, we call it corn. And this is a special corn. I have two different, I want to show you these two just so you can get a good look at them. I have the whole kernel corn, which is the yellow one here. And then I have the Shoepeg corn, which is the white one. Shoepeg was actually one of those animal feeds, and today we use it as a wonderful salad dish. And what I've done is to take the Shoepeg corn, and I'm going to plate this up for you. I've taken the Shoepeg corn and boiled it and then marinated it in mayonnaise and red wine vinegar, oil, and all other kind of seasonings. Tomatoes, look how nice this is. And I'm going to put it right on this big, pretty platter. Look at that Shoepeg corn. Imagine just serving this in the center of your table as an accompanying vegetable. It's really a beautiful dish. I love Shoepeg corn from Boscobel Cottage. Really, really a nice dish. Look at that. Okay, well, I told you a couple minutes ago you saw Kay LaFrance, and she took me around the cottage, and I told you she was going to come to visit with me. Hey, girl,
how are you doing?
Good
to see you.
What do you have there?
Well, from our mutual friend Hazel Daly in Columbia at the Art and Folk Museum, she knew you were going to be doing pecan balls today, and you'd need some more Mayhar jelly, so this is for you.
Oh, that's great. How are they doing at the museum?
Just doing great. Just making baskets and jelly and quilting and doing all those wonderful things that you do.
Last time I was there, they were making home-churned butter. They were just churning the butter, and he gave me a pound. I protected that butter in the refrigerator forever. I love it. They do so many nice things at the museum, and I'm glad. Tell them thank you for this.
I will.
Well, you know, I've made the turnip soup, which is absolutely great, and it smells so good here.
Wonderful.
And then I made your pecan balls and your Shoepeg corn salad. But last time I was at your house, we made that peach soup, remember?
Isn't that good?
And it was great. And I didn't know whether it was a soup or a malt. Actually, it was great.
Well, my daughter says, Mom, this is not soup. This is a malt.
Well, you know what I did? I wanted to bring that recipe here, and I wanted to create it so we could share it with everybody. Let's take a look at it now. I have most of the ingredients right here in the blender, in the food processor. And what I did, I'm using these great Ruston peaches, because in Ruston, Louisiana, we have peaches most of the year. But when I don't have the Ruston peaches, I always just open up a nice can of peaches because they're real good too. And we just peel them and dice the peaches, and I put them into the food processor. And why don't you go ahead and put the liquid in? What's in that right there?
Well, this is a little bit of triple sec and a little bit of lemon juice and some of the peach juice as well. And either some almond extract or frangelica, whichever you like best.
Yeah, and I have some of that right there, and you can just dump that in.
Right.
And now I'm using here, I'm putting yogurt in, but when you made it,
I use sour cream, but either works just as well. This recipe is really very versatile.
And we can even use some nice heavy whipping cream if we wanted to, right?
You really want to get sinful about it. That's true.
Okay, and then we can even put a little sprig of mint. I'm going to put a little mint into it. And then we can kind of zap it around for just a second, right? All we have to do is pulse it for a couple of minutes, huh? And once it's done, hey, I'll tell you, I think they all get the idea. So look, I've got a big picture of it right here. Isn't that great? Why don't you pour us a little cup of that?
The texture is so wonderful.
Look how nice, and it does look like a malt, doesn't it?
It really does.
Oh, it's just great. Hey, look, make sure you fill mine all the way up.
All right. That little bit will be mine. This is so refreshing.
Look how
you can
rich
serve
it
it
is.
any time of the year. The beauty of this is that if you don't have the fresh peaches available, you can use the canned peaches as well.
Well, great. Have a seat there, and let's chat a little bit about Columbia. First of all, I have to ask you about Columbia because it's such a great little town on the Ouachita River, about 15, 20 miles south of Monroe, Louisiana. And you're working with the town right now.
I really am. I'm doing sort of downtown development and parish development and what have you. As you said, it's a beautiful, beautiful little community, very historic, nestled right on the banks of the Ouachita River. And what we're doing is basically getting back to our heritage. There's some wonderful old buildings downtown that we're in the middle of restoring right now. And we're utilizing the river. You know, for so many years, so many of these communities that are on the rivers kind of turn their backs to the river after the floods. Well, we're trying to get back to the beautiful Ouachita River because it is one of the most beautiful in the world.
And it is. It's a great town, and I wish y'all a lot of luck over there. But
thank you.
Boscobel is about 15 miles down the road from the town, I think, and I do mean that, you know, people think location is everything, but you found a masterpiece, a jewel in the woods in Boscobel, and went ahead and opened it as a business. But how did you find it to begin with?
Well, it's sort of, as you say, nestled in the middle of nowhere. We've got a cotton field on one side of us and a bean field on the other side of us, and then the Ouachita River in front of us. I remember one afternoon about 10 years ago, my little girl, who was not quite 3 at the time, wouldn't go down for her nap, and what I always did was put her in the back of the car and she'd just go to sleep instantly, and we just took a drive out to the country. And this place, I guess, was sort of calling me. It was like a magnet, and I found it, and I said, I've got to stay here. So here I am.
Did you ever work in the B&B business, the bed and breakfast business
No,
before?
I always sort of had it in the back of my mind that it was something I'd like to do because I enjoy people, I enjoy sharing, I enjoy entertaining, and this place just sort of made it all work. It all came in together. I think it was meant to be, John.
You know, I think people are very anxious or concerned in some cases that people would open their homes to somebody they've never met before. Here's strangers walking up and they're going to spend the night in your house. I mean,
sure.
Do you ever think about that?
Well, absolutely. You know, I think bed and breakfast people are very, very special. They want to share as well, in a good way. And we don't mind keeping our treasures in the chapel where you stayed and up in the Garçonnier. It's just a really nice way to share, and the guests that we've had over the years seem to really appreciate it.
Well, one of the greatest things about waking up at your particular place is the beautiful gardens. It's so rural. But one of the interesting things, I remember one morning you came up and you deliver breakfast. I tell you, you're great at it. And behind you was this grouping of animals. We had dogs and
menagerie.
geese.
You can go ahead and say it. Menagerie.
That's part of the scene there.
Right. People think we're a bed and breakfast. Really, we're a zoo. And I've been saying all along that on our brochure we need to put, if you don't like animals, please don't come, because you really get your dose of animals. We have 3 dogs, about 8 cats, and a cockatoo that says hello very graciously. And our little cats are kind of special, too.
That's a very special cat, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. They're called munchkins. And they're just like dachshunds, only they're cats. They have little bitty short legs, and they're very special. We like to say that what God took away in legs, he made up for in personality. They're awfully funny. By the way, Edith Ann sent her love. She's the little calico, tiny, tiny little person with a tail.
Beautiful.
And Robert Earl and Minnie Pearl, the whole gang sent you their love.
Beautiful little cats. I have to say it. I enjoyed those as much as the stay. It's interesting that the main house at Boscobel, the grand plantation home, burned down a few years ago, and the cottage was all that was left standing, but yet the cottage is the really interesting part of the plantation today. The guests, the most important guests, are the one that left the greatest impression on you.
Oh, my goodness. There have been so many over the years, and they come to us literally from all over the world. I will tell you, though, that I guess the second or third guest that we had at Boscobel were a couple from Italy. And their dream, and this is very gratifying to me, and I think it will be to you, too, in tourism, their dream was to spend their honeymoon in Louisiana. You know, we think of going to Italy or to Rome for a romantic getaway and so forth, and they wanted to come to Louisiana, and they wrote in our guest book all in Italian.
So we think of going to Rome, they think of coming to a cotton field in North Louisiana. It's great. One of the impressions I had, I saw a poem, and we talked about it on your refrigerator that I thought was just wonderful. Do you remember that?
Well, not only do I remember it, I knew you loved it, so I brought a copy of it.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Read it.
Want to hear?
Yeah, I do.
We all remember a simpler time. Phones rang less and laughter rang true. The world turned slower. You ran out the door to greet the new day, and all you needed was a friend and a game to make it worthwhile. But maybe the times weren't simpler at all. Maybe all you really needed was a place to simplify yourself.
And that's Boscobel. Kay, thank you so much for coming to visit with us today, and thank you all for dropping by as we continue to cook up more of these great Taste of Louisiana. Hey, let's look at some of this turnip soup over here and sip it, okay?
Funding for this program was provided in part by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of Bruce's Yams and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products. Additional funding is provided by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism, Gumbo, Etouffee, Jambalaya, Beignet. Come pass a good time in Louisiana and say things you've never seen before.
Chef John Folse's Plantation Celebrations, Recipes from Our Louisiana Mansions, is a full-color 335-page book containing food history, recipes, and over 150 photographs from these southern landmarks. For your copy, send a check or money order for $28.50 to Louisiana Public Broadcasting, 7860 Anselmo Lane, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70810. Or use your credit card by calling toll-free 1-800-973-7246.